Hey everyone, my name is Rich. This is Rich Talks Records, episode 23. Today we are, it's the second of the for now two-parter of the Fugs. Someday I will do the reprise years, 67 or 68 to 69, but that day is not today. No, today we are talking about the Fugs in 1966 and a little bit of 1967. This will hopefully not be the sprawling head scratcher that the last video was. But then again, I'm just trying to make sense out of these things. So today we will be talking primarily about this, an album alternately released as The Fugs or The Fugs Second Album. This again is the, the 93, this would be the 93 reissue, on Fantasy Records / Fugs Records, if you look it up on YouTube, you will see it is known as the Fugs Second Album. So at some point, it got rechristened as such. I don't remember when exactly I got this. I got this at some point later on in the 90s. Again, pre-internet, and I didn't get on the internet really until the very kind of end of the 90s. It was hard to know what you were even getting. So I think I bought this at a record store that no longer exists. It was downtown. It was called the Crow's Nest. I think that's where I got this. And Crow's Nest was amazing. A lot of attitude from the people who work there. There was a stand-up comedian once who said, "Did you ever notice that some of the people who work in record stores seem to think that they're the ones in the bands that you're buying?" And there was a lot of attitude, but it was a sprawl. God, I miss places like that. Jesus Christ, it was huge, cavernous. Was it 2 rooms, or I sort of remember it just as one big room. God damn, you could really get lost in there. And I just had. I didn't have a ton of money, but, I bought what I could. Anyway, this has really interesting liner notes from Ed Sanders and lots of really cool photos and bric-a-brac from that time. So, and these are the original album came with liner notes by Allen Ginsberg, which are reproduced here. So this was the Fugs' first full-on album for reputable record label ESP, who I talked about in the last one. Ed Sanders talks about some of the god-awful business that the Fugs got ensnared with ESP Records, which led to them leaving ESP Records. So anyway, the Fugs went on tour after the release of their first album, and they were, pretty wild, raw, confrontational. Somewhere towards the end of '65, they lost guitar player Steve Weber, who author of Boobs a Lot, but he left the band, breaking up the cool little guitar team of him and Vinnie Leary. Am I getting Vinnie Leary's name right? I don't know. It's not even listed on the fucking Jesus. It is Vinnie Leary, right? I'm not mad, right? Yeah. So they got a new guitar player, Pete Kearney, and John Anderson was still around on bass, so the main lineup, so the Fugs went in to record this in January and February of '66. It came out right after that in March of '66. So you think about all the stuff that this predates. I mean, again, they're still way ahead of the curve. The Freak Out by Zappa and the Mothers doesn't exist, Aftermath wouldn't have come out yet, right? I'm pretty sure, or it was just coming out. Like Revolver wasn't out yet. Like, you know, the Velvets definitely hadn't made their first album yet. The Doors were now a gigging concern. So you think about how far afield this really was, and our special, come here, our special little friend is here. Will she make an appearance or will she not? She's gonna make an appearance. Ah, yes, there she is. So since I can't read, there we go, there we are. Come on, honey. So since I can't read the liner notes right now, I will say the Fugs in early '66 got raided. Peace-Eye Bookstore got raided, and the establishment was coming down hard on the Fugs. They also were coming down on Lenny Bruce and Thule. This is kind of a beautiful thing. Thule and Lenny Bruce struck up a friendship, and Thule attended Lenny Bruce's trial. They did later sing at Lenny Bruce's funeral. So to know, and that was one of the things that was pretty cool was, the next year Zappa came to town. Zappa, of course, had a great affinity and respect for Lenny Bruce and knew Lenny Bruce. But the Fugs would go see Zappa. Zappa would go see them. The Fugs, so after getting raided, the Fugs signed to ESP and used their the money from ESP to start their own theater. So, but all the places like normally get mentioned with New York, with that the Velvets played, or that Dave Van Ronk would have played, or Richie Havens, or so the Cafe Al Go-Go, and any or Hendrix before he went over to England. The Fugs played all of those places, but then they got they launched their own theater where they basically just took up residency because it was theirs, and they figured if it was their own venue, it would be harder to raid. So, but in the middle of all of that, in the middle of this sort of frenzy of dealing with the police and dealing with the crackdown, it also the U.S. government was now spying on the Fugs. Not spying, but they were coordinating some of the police interference. So in the middle of all of that is when they went in to go and record their second album. So the person who produced it is this, and it was at RLA Studios in New York. It was done over 4 weeks, like I said, between January and February. Richard Alderson is the producer. Richard Alderson was in between legs of being the sound man for Dylan on the 65 Electric shows and then the 66 tours of England and Australia. So the tapes on this thing, this is Richard Alderson's recordings. Most of it, some of it's audience recordings, but yeah, isn't that fucking rad? So I said in the last, I had not put that connection together. I knew of other records that Richard Alderson had produced because he did stuff with Nina Simone, but he did I want to say he did a couple Sun Ra albums, but he did The Last Poets, so he worked with a lot of really cool people. He also worked with Spanky and Our Gang, who I know the Pop Goes the 60s guy likes, but I don't know. Maybe Spanky and Our Gang are really out of sight, but to me they've always been sort of like the kitsch part of the 60s that I don't have that much interest in, like that with the sort of like Winchester Cathedral kind of stuff that doesn't really do much for me. But at any rate, so yeah, Richard Alderson, that guy, produced this album. They had a 4-track at that studio, which at the time was state of the art. And so just to get it right, so the Fugs lineup is Ed, Thule, Ed Sanders, Tuli Kupferberg, Ken Weaver on drums, so John Anderson on bass, Vinnie Leary, and new guitarist Pete Kearney, who also did vocal harmonies, and really radically alters the vocal harmonies of the Fugs. But they are then joined on this album by two extremely important additions. Lee Crabtree on piano, bells, and Celeste. And then Betsy Cline, who sings on Morning Morning. She's credited on Morning Morning and Virgin Forest, but I think she has to be on another song as well, which I will get to. So this album. I know sometimes I point out how albums sound like their album covers. This album sounds like this harsh, monochromatic, like it's there but not all the way there, but really there, and like in your face, but also what is it exactly? Straining for detail, like it's there and it's not there. It's magnificent. I like this is one of, and I say this with awe and reverence, this is one of the wonkiest productions. This is one of the most wrong productions. It is raw power level wrong, and I truly wouldn't have it any other way. I don't want to hear it. It's interesting that while they are radically different in many ways from the Velvet Underground, that there is a similar trajectory from first album to second album. That raw and primitive on the first album, and maybe slightly amateurish in certain aspects, all of a sudden, second album is faster, tighter, harder, meaner, hotter, much, much hotter. So it's interesting that there's a similar trajectory, and in some ways, kind of similar artwork, kind of similar, like, anti-artwork, but awesome artwork at the same time. So it's interesting that the second album, which, the Velvets hadn't even made a first album yet, but I wonder if Lou Reed was taking notes. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever heard him make mention of the Fugs. And Lou was not shy about talking about his influences. So I don't know. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to say. I mentioned in the last video that I was surprised that Dylan knew about the Fugs, but I shouldn't have been. I didn't connect all of that. Like, his sound man was producing their album. Like, duh. Of course he knew about the Fugs. Like, duh. Like, I feel pretty dumb for that. So anyway, God damn it, I love this album. This album is, to me, like, fucking triumphant. Now, there are a couple things that are lost along the way, as the Fugs went from basically, like, avant-garde folk, like an avant-garde jug band, like a noise version of a jug band, went from that to being a fucking rock and roll band, like full-blooded. There are things that are lost along the way. So some of the idiosyncratic noise stuff and a lot of the weird, wonky vocal harmonies or group bellowing, some of the things that you really, really love about that first album, that's gone forever. The other thing that is lost along the way, and it's a testament to the album's greatness that it is able to navigate this, is because this should be the thing that fucks the album up, is Tuli is greatly de-emphasized. He has, I believe, 2 songwriting credits, and is virtually inaudible as a lead vocalist. Tuli on this album even though there he is, like there he is reduced to almost a like a Flavor Flav role of adding interjections, which is very, very disappointing. So the some of the idiosyncratic songwriting and visionary stuff that I talked about in the last video with Thule, that also kind of goes away as well. Though his two songs are, especially the one, are humdingers, and the album couldn't really exist without his contributions. But for us Thule lovers, there is and given that this is only their second album, there is a very surprisingly small amount of Thule that you actually hear, and he's not sort of leading things. Like, this is Ed Sanders, and there's not even anywhere near as much Ken Weaver on vocals. Like, Ken Weaver is now just more of the drummer, and it is Ed Sanders, like, to the fore. Like, he's basically like the front man. Yeah, and I'll talk about the production and stuff as we get into the actual song. So I think that's kind of everything I wanted to say as a preamble. I think I hope I'm not missing anything. But this was this lineup, this sound, this studio, Alderson manning the deck, manning the boards, like. It produces something magical and that you could never repeat. And again, I am so glad that there isn't some cleaned up mix of this. Like, I don't want that. I want this to sound the weird, muddy, at the extremes of muddiness to extremes of brightness, the high contrast. The brutal contrast, monochromatic contrast. The more you hear it, the more you fucking want it. So anyway, the album kicks off with a sort of a brief. It's not call and response, but like a chant, and off and running, and The keyboards are really, really awesome. One of the things about this record, I noted that Ken Weaver wasn't or isn't the best drummer in the world. One of the parts of the wonkiness of the production of the album is Ken Weaver is the most undermixed drummer. The only other album I can think of where the drums are this undermixed, other than obviously Raw Power, would be the Beatles. Would be with the Beatles, where it feels like they've done so many bounce downs, and Sanders does say that they did a ton of overdubbing and a ton of bouncing down. So again, very different from the first album, which was true, just raw. This is what they sound like as they're all playing together, playing and singing together. This is it sounds like at some point they lost the drums, or the drums were just really, really either under-recorded or under-mixed, because it's the what you hear is like ridiculously top-heavy. And it also has the sort of weird 60s thing of where some of the hi-hat or the tambourine is like double or quadruple the volume of the rest of the drum set, or all you're getting is like bass drum and tambourine. But what's interesting is that with the very, very, very little that you can hear of the drums most of the time, Ken Weaver, like, they're fucking grooving. Like, they're like, it may be raw, it may be primitive, but it has movement and swing and verve and propulsion. It is awesome. And again, I don't want to this isn't the way that like the Stooges or James Brown and the JBs like swing and move really hard. Like, I don't want to totally overpaint it. Like, again, this is on their own terms. Like, this is like swinging and propulsive on Fugs terms. So I just to clarify that. So Frenzy is the first song. It is an Ed Sanders solo writing credit. Jesus Christ, Ed Sanders like writes, I'm gonna fucking say it, like one of the best rock and roll songs of the 60s. Like, it just like takes off. And again, the key, weirdly, it's grounded by Crabtree on the keyboards. And again, kind of proto Doors. Jesus Christ, it just takes off. And great, ridiculous, overly self-conscious at times lyrics, but it works. And it's really lusty and libidinal, and hints at a lot of raunchiness, but doesn't like, and that's actually part of what is so part of what's so brilliant about this is the Fugs master a dynamic. So the song is called Frenzy, and interestingly, as much as it takes off and you think they're at maximum capacity of their playing abilities, it's actually a little bit of a fake out. The song is only 2 minutes and 4 seconds, but they managed to keep it back just one bit, because towards the very end, when it explodes, when Sanders starts screaming, "We got the frenzy," and the big, crazy, masked, like Bizarro World Phil Spector group vocals come shooting in, the thing just takes off into fucking outer space. Like, so the fact that they held it back just enough, and then it goes out there somewhere is that much more amazing. And at the end, it ends with Ed Sanders letting out a woo, and it fucking smokes. It is a, it's a beautiful exclamation point to an incredible rock and roll performance, and especially one where you can barely hear the goddamn drums. John Anderson, by the way, is playing awesome descending bass runs, sort of counter melody bass runs on it. It's just fucking fantastic. God damn it. Like, if you like 60s garage rock, in any of the sort of primitive, any of the stuff on what's it called? Not Pebbles. What's the Nuggets? Wow. If you like any of that stuff, or even if you like them or the Trogs, or this is right up there, man. It's right up there, but with weird production, because them or the Trogs, or that's still, or the really early Small Faces stuff, that's still them, the sound of the band playing in the room. This has weird, the other, it's pre-Revolver, but there's a lot of weird overlap with the sound of Revolver, or aspects of the Quick One Who album, where it's what the fuck, why is it mixed like that? But it has it at the same time, it has that those three albums and maybe parts of some of Aftermath, they all kind of have that weird hard black lacquer sound that is just glorious. So weird, wonky production and shit jumping out of nowhere, but boy, it fucking works. And from there, Jesus. So we have this incredible declaration, this incredible statement opening up the album. And then we get into the second song. It's hard to believe this song is only 2 minutes long. Jesus. Maximus from Dogtown -I. So Maximus from Dogtown I. Charles Olson, great poet, wrote that poem. Ed Sanders adapted it into the incredible masterpiece of I Want to Know. One of my favorite songs by anybody. Holy shit. Like, so, I have actually performed this one now dozens upon dozens of times. I am a really big fan of this one. I just think it's incredible. So this is what's the gal's name? Betsy Cline is not credited for this song, but that can't be any of the Fugs singing that high harmony, the sort of wordless counter melody that is happening over the top of all of this. So I'm gonna say that's Betsy. I'm gonna throw it out there and say that that's Betsy Cline. The gigantic high chiming piano, because again, this is like mixed all kind of like weirdly wrong. Like it's the same thing like with the Velvet Underground Femme Fatale, like where your speakers go like if you turn it up. So it's basically a duet of piano and Celeste, and Jesus, it is fucking incredible. Like amazing lyrics adapted from this amazing poem, and melodically, because it actually, because of the piano and the Celeste, and I'm going to say Betsy Cline singing, it sounds more melodic than it actually is, because what Sanders is doing is really kind of a droning chant. And it's actually, the main vocal melody is actually not that melodic, but it works as a counterpoint to the sort of, on one hand, really beautiful, on the other hand, like bright and harsh, high end, like extreme high end of the piano and Celeste and Betsy. Jesus Christ, what a fucking thing of beauty. And then there's like a Celeste solo. God damn it. It's absolutely sublime. It's one of the most glorious things that I've ever heard. And the lyrics and the way Ed sings it, because Ed has now turned into a great singer. What he conveys, and he lives the lyrics. Like it is the ultimate portrayal. Like the thrill of the knowing blasts me out of my brain. We drink or break open our veins solely to know. Like hunger drives me onward. Like fucking, god damn it. It's absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. Like one of my favorite fucking things ever recorded. Perfect. Beautiful. It's one of those things that is like in me. Like I want to know. Like what a fucking statement. What a perfect ultimate statement. And that's the thing about the Fugs. They want to know. Again, like I said in the last video, they aren't didactic followers of theory telling you what to do and how to live. They are like the ultimate fucking question askers, and the just like the naive explorers, and this is just an absolutely glorious, beautiful, sublime expression of that, and eternally youthful in the best possible way. I hope I did that one justice. Yeah, love it. And then so we go from that right back to fucking rock and roll. Great fucking modal lick. This is a co-write between Sanders and Pete Kearney. So I'm assuming it's Pete Kearney's lick. This is in the same way that like Mr. Soul is like a great I'm going to say, I don't know if it actually is, but I'm going to say it is, just like a great modal guitar lick, a great riff. Like, Skin Flowers, so Sanders on lyrics, Sanders singing. And again, it has some of that dark exploration feel of the questing into the unknown, the innocence to experience thing of like the first Doors album, and it has a lot of that vibe, and again, really like libidinal and spiritual and raunchy, or raunchy about, or spiritual about raunchiness, or raunchy about spirituality, but like awesome little guitar solo, and the way that like they speed up in the chorus, like the I absolutely love this song. This is another like incredible, just great 60s rock and roll song, as undermixed as the drums are. And but you, this is like the one where it's almost only like bass drum, but it fucking works. It moves, and it has its own propulsiveness, and it has its own, it fucking grooves, and yeah, love it. Just an amazing song, great lyrics, and like the locker room stuff is gone. This is experience. This is like confident and excited and raw, you know? And this isn't like gross out stuff. This isn't crude, like elbowing your buddy, like, did you hear that? Like, this is not that. This is, as much as there's still a sense of humor to it, and a lightness of spirit, it is also grounded in experience, and confident experience. It's fucking fantastic, you know? So, and then it goes into sort of its cousin song, Group Grope. And Group Grope is another great lyric. Big, again, insane, non-Phil Spector mass of voices in the chorus that just like bursts out of nowhere. And another I'm assuming it's Kearney, like really like hot guitar solo. This is a Sanders co-write, or not a co-write, a sole writing credit to Sanders. Again, so like we're now like, and that's the other thing, is I don't quite get all of the lyrics. I feel like there might be like some slang or some in-joke stuff that I am missing, but or some terminology that I am just simply not privy to from not having been in New York in the 60s. But it is, there is still a great sense of humor to it. But yeah, I will say though, Skin Flowers and I Want to Know, I completely get the drive for that, especially when I was much younger. I completely get that. Group Grope, I will say, is a little bit more misanthropic in that it's specifically about orgies, which I tried to put an orgy together once, and I had gotten a couple girls to agree to it. I think the one girl just sort of wanted to get a shot at me. So I think that was the only reason why she agreed to it. But there were a couple guys. One was not really into it, but there was another guy who was into it. And all of a sudden, like, I was like shopping one day, like I was at like a bookstore or something, and it hit me like, I don't want this guy to watch me fucking somebody, and I don't want to watch him fuck anybody. And I think he was into it, because he was like in a like he was gonna have a good old time. And so I had to like tell everybody, like, no, we're not gonna Like, we're not going to do this. And nobody involved, oh, sad. Nobody involved ever had sex with each other in any way. Oh, but yeah. So I'm not a orgiastic person. But it's an amazing song. It makes you think that it might not be a terrible idea. Though when I actually tried to put one together, it hit me what a spectacularly awful idea it really was. So that is Group Grope. And then what should be, so there's 10 songs on this record. I always interpreted this as the side closer. It in fact is not. It's the penultimate song on side 1, but it should be the side closer. And that is Lee Crabtree on the keyboards. Beautiful, beautiful work. It is after we've had this incredible libidinal rock and roll dance party, like, that's just fucking amazing. We take it all comes down with Coming Down, which apparently was one of Ed Sanders's first songs that he wrote. It was part of that original 50 or 60. And I'm glad he held back recording it until the second album, because I don't really know that it would have worked at the earlier recording sessions. I can't really picture it working. So but Lee Crabtree is this is another masterpiece. And I don't know, I somewhere between Vinnie Leary and Kearney are great, understated, extremely tasteful, intelligent, sympathetic blues licks. They don't overplay it. They don't try to. That, as they get different musicians and become more pro in the reprise years, that sometimes goes out the window. But here it is just like every single note counts. And Betsy Cline is, again, not credited on this. It's basically a duet. I think that Pete Kearney is the one duetting with Sanders on this. It's magnificent, and Sanders sings it all the way down. It actually might even be Ken Weaver singing, but I don't think it is. I'm pretty sure it's Ed Sanders. And the way that his voice is mic'd is really, really cool. Again, it has sort of pre-Revolver-ish, like, moving things around in an interesting way. So his voice is like super foregrounded, and very, again, pre-Velvet Underground, very explicit drug reference stuff, and this time the drug is cocaine. So and imagistic, self-consciously poetic, harrowing, sort of tragic lyrics. It's all first person. And that refrain of ashes, pits of ashes, is dark. There's the dark earthiness, or the sound of this record is like chrome poking out from dirt, and reflecting off a streetlight or something, like that again, the high contrast. It's just put to absolute great effect. Weaver is, I guess, more keeping it to percussion on this, but he kind of just keeps it at a simmering pace. It's outstanding. And if this was the side ender, it would be a perfect side ender, and the next song would be a perfect side opener. Doesn't work out that way. I understand why they made the next song the side enders, because the last song on the album, Virgin Forest, is very long, so they were I get that. So it was done for running, the sequence makes sense from a running length purpose. However, in my world, the album side one ends with Coming Down. It is a perfect side ender. But we will deal with reality. So the sixth song on this album is, and I forget the cat's name. It's something Goldbart. He is he's another poet, and he wrote Dirty Old Man. This is some seriously misanthropic shit. And that's part of what I think is so interesting about the Fugs, there's the raw primitiveness of their playing, and in some cases the singing. But one of the things that's really interesting, and this is prevalent in the gross out humor from like some of the outtakes from the first album. But as much as the Fugs are sort of like righteous, what I find interesting, and I think something that has really been lost in the last decade, is that part of the righteousness is also being misanthropic and like going in some ways way off message. And the sort of subversive, dark, weird, stuff. Like, and that's one of the things I always loved about, again, like Lenny Bruce or Crumb or Zappa, is I love when there's that streak to things. The Dead Kennedys have that. I mean, that's a big part of what I love about Jello's stuff. So Dirty Old Man is like, dirty. I mean, it's filth, floor, and filth. And it is absolutely played for laughs with the, again, gigantic mass chorus bursting in. The fact that Lee Crabtree starts at some point in the song playing Pop Goes, like a abbreviated quotations of Pop Goes the Weasel. But the song, I would imagine that's Ed Sanders. Again, I'm pretty sure it is. It sounds like him. It could be Weaver, but I think it's Ed Sanders doing like an old man, like a gross old man voice. And, it's a call and response song. It is between the old man voice and the gigantic chorus, the gigantic deviant Greek chorus. And it's a guy who is I don't know what else to say, a drug dealing commie pederast, encouraging all the worst in the youth. It could be a college campus, but it could be a grade school. The lyrics are open to interpretation. Either way, it is, it's in some ways it's there are people, especially now, who would hear this. This would be all sorts of, this would cause all sorts of problems if this was a hot band that the Stereo Bubblegums site liked, and then they put this song out. I can't imagine a band putting out a song like this now. Certainly not a band that had any sort of like reputation, I'm sure there's some people putting up some wild shit like on Bandcamp right now, but I'm certainly not aware of it. And I'm 45. It's not my, I'm out of the running in a lot of ways on this stuff. But Dirty Old Man is dirty and played for dirt and played for laughs, and you can finally fucking hear Thule. He's doing the interjections of prevert, and so it is. It's a funny song. It's a dark, wicked, weird song played, and again, it flirts or it implies that it is like politically righteous, but then it is. I mean, it isn't, but that's part of what I love about it. I love that it. I love that, and Buzz Osborne made the point of hippies. He sort of categorized the Fugs in with the Stooges and Captain Beefheart, and like early Alice Cooper as a certain kind of hippie. Alice Cooper had described himself as or described the early Alice Cooper band as beer hippies, but I mean these guys are not. Or I don't think they're beer drinkers. Ken Weaver might have been, but I don't think there's a lot of beer drinking happening here. But there's something that again, that anarchic, subversive, willing to fuck with you, willing to say the wrong things. And as a phrase I've used before from the wonderful Ferdy Pacheco, piquant naughtiness. So it ends with Dirty Old Man. I don't know that the song is necessarily on the level of what Sanders is writing on the rest of side one, because Ed Sanders hits a sort of lusty groove that is just sort of perfect. But again, something like this adds dimension to the Fugs, and I think that's part of what is part of their brilliance and importance, is subverting their own self-righteousness. I love that, and there's something that I have tremendous respect for filth. So with that, we flip the record over. And we finally get some Thule action with his incredible song "Kill for Peace." I think one of the just a great broadside, and it's largely it's very common sense, and to me it's hard, it's a great anti-war statement, and to me counter arguments to my way of thinking largely fail. So I am a big fan of this song. What's interesting is they have really sort of arranged it, and it has the great keyboard parts, and they've like turned it into a rock and roll song, but it still has that sort of Thule intonation and the Thule macrocosmic touches. He doesn't, as best I can tell, it is still Ed Sanders doing most of the lead vocals, I guess. But also really interesting use of sound effects, because, at this point, sound effects on rock records was still a relatively new idea. So, they do a really good job of incorporating the battle sounds. The war sounds match the crazy bright high contrast of the rest of what you're hearing. And also in the same way that like in Carpe Diem Thule throws in it's an old cliche, like he throws in these things that are sort of, like in the same way that like Dylan acoustic, like would stretch certain bars out. I mean, and that John Lee Hooker and Howlin' Wolf would do the same things. When you're in like a tighter band, you have to rein things in. So I like that they still kept that in about the Love the Russians part. Like that's like a measure longer. Like a more songwriter wouldn't put that in. First of all, but I love that they kept it, and I love that they made room for that. And it's a great song. It's really, really, really short, but it's just a little over 2 minutes. Apparently, Ed Sanders was he was on the cover of Time magazine after this album came out, and apparently was invited to be on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and he said that he would only show up if the Fugs could do "Kill for Peace," and they said, "No, we're not broadcasting "Kill for Peace." That's not going on broadcast. Like that's not going up on network television. Like that's not happening. So yeah, a great song. Nice to have some Thule finally. But then we have the next second Thule song, "Morning Morning," and Betsy Cline is credited on this. And it is, I don't know who that is singing. That might be Kearney singing. But it is a duet. It is definitely not Thule, and it really doesn't sound like Ed Sanders, and it also doesn't sound like Ken Weaver. But it is, and the piano, it's a little bit back to some of the I Want to Know. But it is absolutely gorgeous. Is this the single best thing that Thule ever wrote? It might very well be. That, what I've talked before about in terms of sense of ancientness, sense that these songs have just always existed, that's this. And it also has that feeling of, the story about Paul McCartney writing Yesterday, like in his sleep, and thinking that he must have cop the tune from somewhere else. This is one of those. I mean, this is, especially for Thule, who tends to favor more sort of intonation and chant stuff. This is a gorgeous, beautiful melody. But again, it just feels so elemental. It really feels like it has always existed. It feels like an ancient, like, in this case, like Persian love poem handed down. Not love poem, but like something like dealing with heartache and laments and unrequited feelings. Like, it is a stunning, gorgeous piece of work. And what Lee Crabtree and Betsy bring to it, they just elevate the material that much more. A stunning piece of work. This is one of Ed Sanders' favorite songs of Thule's, and I get it, and I get why he would be so in love with this, because it is incredible. So then all of that sort of goes out the window, and we have the song "Do It All Right." So Crabtree and Vinnie Leary did the music, and the lyric is written by poet Ted Berrigan, who was a mentor to Richard Hell. So Ted Berrigan. This is in some ways maybe even more misanthropic than Dirty Old Man. Again, this is it's back to the sort of tough, raw, primitive garage rock on side one. Great, again, pre-Doors organ or keyboard work from Crabtree. Beautiful melodic stuff, but also like really swinging. Like it's really, really, really good playing. It's beautiful. And but and Sanders is singing, and and again the weird massed choir. Jesus Christ! So this is one of the places where they ran afoul of ESP Records. ESP Records actually went back in and mixed down some of the more controversial lyrics. And the lyrics to this song are, I don't know, is it more controversial than Dirty Old Man? It may very well be. It is like, I'm not going to paraphrase it, you can go listen to it. I cannot even fucking imagine a band with any kind of reputation, underground or not, putting out something like this now. It makes a couple statements that are like, holy fuck. And it certainly was holy fuck in its own 1966 context as well. Really like unapologetically explicit and reveling in its own outsiderness, and just again how misanthropic it is. And that vibe of the Fugs. I mean, another act I would compare it to would be like some of the Funkadelic records, where on one hand, Parliament Funkadelic could be righteous, but then they could get like kind of like fucking nasty and like be very willing to be off-putting and super duper like not righteous. That's this, and but again, I love that that's there, and I do believe that it adds dimension to what the Fugs are doing, and I think it absolutely. I'm very, very glad that it's there to throw in these kind of weird question marks and these very like outsider, non-message attitudes. I think you have to have that stuff, and to me that's signs of a properly functioning subculture or counterculture, where you can throw all that stuff out there and you can expunge some nasties, that's one of the points of art. So yeah, it's a cool song. It's an eyebrow raising song. And then we move to the end of this album. So Virgin Forest is the big epic. It is over 11 minutes. It is the big ending of the album. It is I don't even know. it prefigures the Doors stuff. It prefigures stuff like the MC5's like Starship, but it also prefigures a lot of weird meandering late 60s Soft Machine, post Sid Floyd stuff as well. These big sort of epics, and it is but it's like Fugs style. So there's like the invocation, and then it goes into this sort of like oral cartoon Tarzan thing with Ken Weaver. He's like the Tarzan figure, or it's hard to say if he's the invading force or if he is a jungle native. But either he abandons the native woman for some bestiality get down, or it becomes a three-way with the I can't exactly follow it, and then then it goes into a sort of then it goes into like the part that is quoting William Burroughs. I think the invocation is initially quoting Ginsberg, but then it goes into the more sci-fi part where I guess they're fucking around with an oscillator way before anybody else was. This is pre-synthesizer. This is pre-Moog synthesizer. So it's like very futuristic and sounds like Delia Derbyshire kind of stuff almost. I wish they'd gone even further with that. And then so there's like the hyper futuristic, hyper explicit sort of Burroughs cut up stuff. And then it goes into a very sort of Doors-ish, sort of quasi-soft parade-ish, sort of lounge, jazz, chill out, smoldering thing. And then it goes into the outro benediction. And it is a very weird piece. I don't know that it's entirely successful, but as I said in the last video, as the Seth guy who writes for Head Heritage said many years ago, and I've quoted this before, and I will no doubt quote it endless times as I make more videos. Great art can take the hit for its worst excesses, and I believe that very strongly. So it is a weird, wonky, head-scratching, what the fuck is this epic? It weirdly mixes crazy gonzo, Edwin, God bless you, out there, weirdo fucking humor with sci-fi stuff and I guess political or social commentary of a sort with weird spiritual, maybe /occultic /pagan stuff. It's all over the place. It is really strange. I remember years ago reading an article or a thing about Harrison's Wonderwall soundtrack, and somewhere they were talking about the Wonderwall soundtrack and then electronic sounds, and they were saying like, everybody obsesses over like the White Album and Let It Bleed and Blonde on Blonde or something. But they said, I get the feeling that these albums are in some ways what the 60s were actually like, which is really weird. And that's sort of like Virgin Fugs coming as the album ender, and it just sort of being the statement that, is it a statement and you don't, in some ways, don't really know what it is. And it is just really, really, really odd. It is, again, half radio play, half, weird like filmed play for 50s television, half sci-fi, half Burroughs cut up stuff, half pushing the boundaries of recording techniques. It's all over the place. Oh, and Betsy is the native woman in the Ken Weaver playlit section. It's a head scratcher, and I don't really know what I think of it, to be perfectly honest with you. But it is a weird, creative, bananas, bonkers ending to an exceptional, wonderful album. And yes, it's wonky and strange, but again, I will take wonky and strange, especially when the rest of the album is this absolutely fucking outstanding. So that is it for the Fugs second album, or also known, the Fugs. But there is some bonus material on here that is exceptional, and we will get to that right now. I am going to see if we can get through this in record time. So, not that I want to give the short shrift to anything, but let's see. It's a little challenge to myself. So, first of all, the 1967 material, we have 2 live songs from the Players Theatre on McDougal Street in Greenwich Village. We have a live version of I Want to Know and the Mutant Stomp. Now, the live version of I Want to Know, it has some of the power and some of the vibe of the sort of smaller band, quieter dynamics of some of the stuff on the Velvet Underground's 1969 live. It's a beautiful reinterpretation. I believe that is Kearney on the guitar. Beautiful. It's just beautiful, and it's a totally different version. They don't try to replicate the alchemy, the genius sort of lightning in a bottle of the studio version, and the harmonies are gorgeous. Like, so it's just, again, from the raw primitive insanity of the first album to this. I mean, these are beautiful harmonies, and classically beautiful harmonies. And then there is the Mutant Stomp and Ed Sanders, country, subverted country, gross out. He, in the intro, he tries to sort of give it a political point, like, oh, it's about the dangers of pollution or of nuclear testing or whatever. But really, it's just a gross out. Ed focuses his gross out around prom. I don't know why prom is the maypole that Ed likes to do the gross out dances around, but that's his go-to. And it's, it's about a guy with 9 dicks, and he has all these dates, and they have some crazy orgy in the pickup truck or whatever, and then he finally, but one dick wouldn't come, and he finally happens because he fucks a watermelon. I think Ken Weaver joins in for the watermelon fucking part. If that sounds great to you, if a goofy country song about a guy with 9 dicks who ends up fucking a watermelon sounds like your kind of song, then the Mutant Stomp might just be for you. I don't know. So every 3 or 4 years I listen to it, and I think, yep, that is how that song goes. And I've never thought any other way about it. However, now, the Fugs, they had the censorship issues with ESP. They had there were all sorts of other problems with ESP that I sort of talked about in the last video. But so they were eager to leave ESP, and in 1967, they actually, this album did very well. It charted. I think it made it to 89 on the charts, which for an underground album that is raw and has very wild subject matter, that is pretty remarkable. So they signed to Atlantic Records and started recording. My understanding is that they essentially finished the album, most of which got converted over into the first Reprise album, which is Tenderness Junction. But these are 3 songs from the Thrown Off Atlantic. I would love to hear this entire thing, because this is pretty remarkable stuff. What is interesting, and I will read, this was recorded at Talent Master Studios in New York, produced by Ed Sanders. But the lineup, they used the Atlantic session musicians. So it's, again, Ed, Thule on vocals, Weaver on drums and vocals, Lee Crabtree is still around, but now we have Robert Banks on organ and piano, Alan Jacobs on guitar, sitar vibes, etc., Eric Gale on guitar, Chuck Rainey on bass, and Bernard Purdy on drums. So, first up is a recording of Carpe Diem. This is the one that the Melvins kind of based their arrangement around when they did their cover. I'm I had a whole thing I actually cut out of the first video. I got into it. Tuli Kupferberg's widow posted the Melvins cover and did not like it. And I had a whole long thing that I cut out of the first video where I talked about my brief week-long Facebook beef with Tuli Kupferberg's widow, which was literally the stupidest thing of all time. Like, I do not want to be arguing with this woman. But she was very weirdly hectoring in a, like when Gloria Steinem hooked up with Jerry Falwell kind of way. It was a very awkward, weird conversation where she was talking about Satanism and the evils of metal and punk music, and that it was like pro-police and pro-violence and pro-military and satanic. She kept really hammering away at satanic, and I politely said, "You don't know what you're talking about," and it was a very weird, conversation. Lots of people, because of who she is, were joining in, rallying around her, and it was very, very strange. And this is not a person that I want to argue with, and this is a person who I have respect, who I respect. So it was very, very strange to like get into it with somebody, especially in a way that I hadn't gotten into it with a baby boomer since I was like in my late teens. So that was very, very weird. So Carpe Diem, this version is not a patch on the original. Tuli is inaudible if he's even on it. It's gentle and sing, cuckoo, sing. Like, it's timid almost. They add a couple nice little rhythmic kicks. I think they're going for hymn-like, but it comes off as timid, and when they get to the "you better make your love today" part, it's downright, like, it's saccharine. And so I understand that they were trying to make something that was more palatable and understandable, but in this instance, it brutally suffers by comparison. Stick with the first album. Then we have a song that the Fugs had performed like 45-minute versions of. Boy, it would be interesting to hear some of that if that's out there. Live versions of this on their first tour, and that is the song River of Shit. River of Shit is the mysterious Goldbart is back. I don't know who Goldbart is. I do apologize. And I looked up Goldbart, and I think he did have some other songwriting credits, but I don't remember what they were, so you'll have to forgive me. But this is Ken Weaver. It is also another thing. So River of Shit is renamed here Wide River. It popped up on one of the Reprise albums. I'm forgetting which. This is... I wish that... So, there's the opening part, and then it goes into sort of the monologue, and where Ken Weaver is like a farmer, an American farmer in the Midwest somewhere, and I like that, and I think it's effective, and he plays it for laughs, but there's a seriousness and depth to it, and I certainly agree with the points that he's making. But I've always found this song to be kind of a missed opportunity because it is so evocative and so powerful. I wish almost like Tuli had written it or co-written it. I wish that they really just stuck with that opening part and just stretched that out and just made that the song, because it's so evocative, and it could almost be like a perverse spiritual or something. And I wish it had some of Tuli's macrocosmic and ancient in time and out of time touches, because I think that would have improved it tenfold. I like what Weaver does. It's interesting because this is sort of Weaver's big political statement, and what Weaver goes for is, you totally agree with him, but very much a sort of up the middle, bring the boys home message. So his anti-war is not the confrontational, like, in your face, kill for peace. It is a sort of rousing, tongue-in-cheek, but also very serious, bring the boys home message that everybody can rally around. It's the same thing that the Smothers Brothers, like, it's that sort of left-leaning, but again, more closer to centrist and closer to the common sense argument that everyone can hopefully the better angels, you know, prevail and everybody can get on board with, yes, bring them home. They should not be there. But it's still a great song. I love the song. It's one of Ken Weaver's best. I don't, but it's just, like I said, it's just that first part is so penetrating and amazing. And that's, to me, that's the song. Just elaborate on that. You know what I mean? And then we get to the Ed Sanders masterpiece that only is here, and this is one of those times where, kind of like some of the songs on that I talked about in the first video, this is one of those that is absolutely essential. This is one of those Rich is ringing the fucking alarm bell. Go find this one. It's up on the YouTube version of this has the bonus tracks. Go fucking find it on YouTube. Go. And that is the masterpiece. It is not even 3 minutes. Nameless Voices Crying for Kindness. A cousin of I Command the House of the Devil. It is fucking unbelievable. It is, again, a spooky, dark, weird, phantasmagoria lyrics. It is bestiality-tastic. It is weird, dark, spiritual, occultic, pagan, ancient, modern, postmodern. It's an absolute masterpiece. The light is blinking. I'm trying. It is absolutely fucking amazing. It is one of the greatest songs the Fugs ever recorded. I absolutely love it. It is one of the best songs from the 60s. Seek it out. I cannot stress that enough, okay? Now, that is it for the Fugs in 1966, 1967. I had promised that I would talk about the Thule composing tapes. We clearly don't have really time for that. The bonus tracks on the last bonus track on here has the Ed Sanders sort of editorializing, but the Rhapsody of Thule, it's Thule coming up with song ideas, some of which never got turned into songs. And then on the box set, there is the Enormous Truth of Thule, which is 12 minutes. I would absolutely recommend seeking those out if you are a fan of Thule's work. If you listen to this stuff and you like Thule, go find that, because it's Maximum Thule, and he was a creative visionary and a brilliant man. And that is it for the Fugs. We hit 75 subscribers. Thank you. We did it. Yeah, 100 is coming next. That's right. So, yeah. And I hope you've enjoyed this. The light is blinking and driving me crazy bananas. So I am going to sign off. I'm not sure what video will come next, but hope you've enjoyed this, and I will see you in the next video. God bless, you know, all that. Like, subscribe, comment, YouTube, etc. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!